I lost 12 pounds after doing the 30-day alternate day fasting challenge. And I want to talk about the lessons I learned and how beneficial it was for me. And if it's something you're interested in doing, maybe worth learning more about. But before I dig into those lessons, I want to go into what the hell alternate day fasting is. Because this was something leading into early this year, I didn't know what it was. And it wasn't until I came across someone who has been doing it consistently, and he was running a 30-day challenge for the whole month of January. So this past month, it was a great way to kickstart the new year, to detox and do all the things. But the other thing, so you guys kind of have some background on me, is I'm also training for a half marathon, which is something I have next week. And as you know, with running, fueling is a really important part of your training and the race entirely. So I was a little apprehensive in doing this for the month of January because I need to fuel to run. But I was able to maneuver my schedule a little bit and make it work. So ADF, also known as alternate day fastings, where you eat every other day, plain and simple. For example's sake, let's just say Sunday. I ate regularly. I stopped eating at 6 p.m. Sunday night. Monday comes around. I don't eat anything for the entirety of that day, all of Monday. Tuesday morning rolls around. It is 6 a.m. I break my fast with a meal from 6 p.m. Sunday night through Monday to Tuesday morning, 6 a.m. That is a 36-hour fast. So I did not eat anything during that time. What I am consuming is liquids. And I'm not talking like Coke Zero or lattes or anything like that. I was mostly consuming black coffee, electrolyte water, salted water, lemon water, teas, lots of salt. And that was it. That is all I consumed during my fasted. I found myself Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, the days I'm at the office, it was actually a lot easier because I'm away from my house, my kitchen. So there wasn't really any temptations. I did learn pretty quickly, like there was always a time during the day where it wasn't like a hunger, but it was kind of like, oh, that does sound good. And that was around the 4 to 6 p.m. mark, especially if you have family. So it does require a lot of discipline. But once you get in the swing of things, your body just kicks in. It adjusts so quickly. So that's alternative fasting. There's probably more to it. There's like scientific aspects, but I really always wanted to try fasting. I think the longest time I had done fasting was shortly before I started the alternate day fasting, which was I did a 40-hour fast just because I've been seeing it more. People are doing it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. So one of the first lessons and takeaways from this was the amount of inflammation that reduced in my body. Like, it is insane. I'm a very active person. I work out, but a lot of times inflammation is from different stressors in our lives. It can be just stress in general from work. It could be the food you eat that like breaks you out. You work out and you do very intense workouts that can also inflame your body, injuries, stuff like that. So one of the first things I noticed, maybe the first 5 days into the alternate day fasting, was my face had gone down significantly, like just everything in general, like all the inflammation I felt in my tummy and my face and like everywhere. And by the time, it was like day 30, it was just like night and day. I had shedded so much water that I retained for whatever reason. And I'm a woman heading into my 40s. And so from what I learned, a lot of women carry a lot of water. And so fasting was a really great way. I call it as a really great prescription for me to like reset my hormones. I'll touch upon this, was also like my period, which was something I was a little bit apprehensive about. It's like, am I not gonna, because I'm fasting, I'm working out, am I gonna miss my period? But luckily I did get it, but I'll talk more about that too. But that also tied into like the inflammation. And I would say lesson or takeaway number 2 is probably the most important. We use food as a distraction and we're addicted to food. We put too much on food to make us feel better instead of ourselves. And because as we all know, like, what do we use food for? We use food to connect with others. When we're having a bad day, it's like, oh, let me have a drink. Make myself some comfort food. Oh, we're having a family gathering, a barbecue. That's a way for us to connect. During this time too, I went on a 2-week road trip to visit family in the West Coast. I'm originally from California. I live in Florida now. And one of the things I learned was people were looking at me crazy. My family was like, what do you mean you're not eating? I'm like, "I'm not eating." Like, "Or are you okay? Like, are you gonna be fine?" I'm like, "I've been doing this for 10 days." By that point, I was doing it like 10 days. I'm like, "I'll be fine. I feel great." And the breakthroughs I had from just fasting alone was insane because when you're eating, you're too distracted putting food in your mouth instead of food for thought, if that makes sense. You're more distracted eating and talking instead of not eating and listening. Like, instead of eating, I was reflecting. I was thinking about my life of like what I was doing. And when you eat as well, and also if you're eating junk, there's so much trash that you're putting in your body that your mind, your brain is foggy. You're not thinking clearly. And I really, and I wasn't perfect every day, but I definitely used the times to be very grateful and like to be appreciative and really think about the path I'm leading in my life. And it led to some remarkable revelations of like, I don't like where I'm going in my life, like the career or like the path I'm taking. I need to do something about it. Flip of a switch of the mindset that it took me. So, food is a distraction, and fasting allowed me to move the attention from eating to reflecting, to be more in touch with myself spiritually, like with my own spirit, ensuring that I'm prioritizing myself. Because also, when you're working, it's so hard to be focused if you're too focused on what are you going to eat for lunch? What are you going to cook for breakfast? What are you going to have for dinner? We're so preoccupied with thinking, prepping, buying, eating. All that takes time. So I had a lot more time on my hands to think, to work on my goals, to like work. So that was probably one of the favorite things of fasting. I was like so mentally clear. And then leading to takeaway 3, which is you are a lot stronger than you think. Every time I mentioned to people I was doing this alternate day fasting, they're like, that's cool. I could never do that. I'm not disciplined enough. It was always like so negative, like talking down about themselves. And I'm like, well, you've never tried. Like, why don't you just try it? And of course, you can't expect somebody, I don't expect anybody to go from 0 to like fasting for 36 hours or 40 hours, but your body adapts really quickly. If I can do it, I think honestly anybody can do it. I'm one of the persons that I really am good at starting stuff, but like finishing it through is not something I've been good at lately. And I wanted to change that. I was like, that's just not right. If I said I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So I was seeing myself go through that and finish proved to me I can do anything. Why am I selling myself short? I'm limiting myself with my capabilities. So it was also another eye opener on like, damn, I am selling myself short. I need to do more. This whole thing showed me I need to do more. I'm not doing enough. So it's not saying you should start at doing 40 hours of fasting, but maybe start with intermittent fasting where you give yourself a time frame to eat. Like maybe start with like a 16-hour fast or 14-hour fast and then work your way up from there. Some of the challenges I went through, and it was harder. I think some days were harder than others. I would say the beginning, it was hard kind of coming home and, my family was cooking dinner or going to a restaurant. But by the end of it, it was just kind of like, all right, I've accepted this. Not to say I didn't go through times where I wanted to just eat, right? But on that point, I was speaking more on like my period and my menstrual cycle. And that was definitely something I feared a little bit was, well, what if I don't get my period? Because I have heard of that. Because there's this big thing about fasting right now, and it's led by men talking about, yeah, you should fast, this and that. But it's like, but the women's body is built a little bit different, where there's a lot of hormones involved and we get our period every month. And sometimes fasting and working out, like, it can affect your period. So because I was losing weight and I was very active, I was still training for my half marathon. And the way I kind of did it was on my fasted days, I would just lift very light weights, nothing crazy for 30 minutes and walk. And then on my fueling days, that's when I did my half marathon training. So whether it was anywhere between 4.5 to I think the most I ran was maybe 8 miles, but anything over that, like it was honestly quite challenging because I wasn't fueled properly. So there was a kind of a balance I had to work there to make it happen. But I was also listening to my body. And so there was a time right like when I got my period where I was like so hungry. And so I didn't fast. I think for one of the days, I instead of fasting for 36 hours, I think I fasted for 24 hours. And I ate like technically 2 days in a row, but I was okay with that. I'm like, who makes this rules anyways? I'm still gonna, finish. I know I had to do what I had to do for my body and listening to my body. And so that's one thing I will say, if you are going to do is like listen to your body. If something doesn't feel right, like it's okay. Like who are you proving it to anyways? And that doesn't mean you're not going to finish. You know what I mean? I kept the challenge going. The other part that was hard was traveling. I was out of town for practically 2 weeks. And as you know, being home, you have your set routine, you have your, everything set in place. Whereas when you're traveling, you have to create new routines. So I was in 3 different locations, 3 different cities during that time. I'm from the West Coast. I'm from Cali. I live in Florida now. But traveling back in time, that's another thing. And then spending time with family and explain to them what I was doing. And I spent time with my mom, and she didn't really get it. So she kept asking, like, "Are you sure you're okay?" And I was like, I had to explain the whole thing. So that was a little bit challenging, and like planning my days or planning my gatherings around my fueling days too. I did get a little creative there, but it just is what it is. Like we just adjusted and made things happen. So that was one of the challenges that made it hard. I would say that was probably the main ones. I wanted to fuel properly during my trainings. I did a more of a high protein, like Mediterranean diet. So I still had meat. I mainly had eggs, chicken, beef. And that's really it. Fish. Those are the main proteins. I splurged here and there while I was out of town. Like, yeah, like I went to In-N-Out. I was not gonna not go to In-N-Out while I was out in Cali. I think the next time I do ADF, I probably will try to do more plant-based to like really cleanse my body, do more like juices and stuff like that. Who shouldn't try this? I would say for sure, definitely if you have like medical conditions or have a medical history, definitely check with your doctor first. But if not, like literally like try fasting 18 hours and like feel out your body. I think the main thing about this whole fasting journey is you learning how to listen to your body. Like your body will tell you what's going on. And so that's why when I got my period, I was like, I'm going to eat. I'm not going to do 36 hours. I'm going to do 24 hours instead. And that worked just fine. So it's just listening to your body, check with your doctor and giving it a shot. And then just knowing like each day, you're just going to get better and better. What am I experimenting with next? So like I mentioned, I definitely want to do another round of ADF doing the more plant-based, but I've been seeing more and more about the um, sardine 72-hour sardine challenge. So I think that's something I'm going to do just because the amount of fat, the good fats are in sardines. I think you eat sardines like 3 times a day or something like that. So I think that's way easier than ADF. So we're going to give that a shot and see how that goes. The other, I definitely want to go through like a 72-hour fast. I know people that are crazy, like going through like 5 days, 10, 30-day fast. I don't think I'm there. Like I don't have a calling for that right now, but I would say 72-hour fast would be something just to kind of see where that takes me. And because it was such a spiritual experience for me this past month, I really want to be more in touch with my spiritual side and doing like, I think a 72-hour fast. Hope you guys learned a lot about it. If you have any questions about ADF and like my journey, my experience, definitely drop the question down below. Is this something you guys would try? I highly recommend trying. It doesn't have to be a full month. Maybe it can be a week. Maybe it can be a few days, right? Where you give it a shot. But definitely drop a comment down below and I'll catch you on the next one.